Thank you for watching this preceptor training video on providing effective feedback. Preceptors working with Utah State University vary both in their work setting and in their career duration. You may be planning to take your first intern in the upcoming year, or you may be a seasoned preceptor with many years of service to the profession. In this short video, we will provide a quick overview of feedback, why it is important, and some strategies for providing effective feedback to interns. Before we start talking more in depth about feedback, we recommend taking a few minutes to think about the following points and note some of your thoughts. What activities are you currently involved in that require you to give feedback to students or interns? Have you had any training in giving feedback, and if so, what are some of the key principles you remember? What are your strengths in giving feedback? And then what aspects of providing feedback are you hoping to improve? So what is feedback? Feedback is information about a person's performance of a task and is basis for improvement. It lets students or interns know in a timely manner and on an ongoing basis how they are performing. It's an essential part of dietetics education and training. It helps learners to maximize their potential at different stages of training, raise awareness of strengths and areas of improvement, and identify actions to be taken to improve performance. Feedback is important to the ongoing development of learners in dietetics. Dietetic careers involve the integration of knowledge, skills, and behaviors in complex and often stressful environments with time and service pressures on both the preceptor and intern. Feedback is central to developing interns' competence and confidence at all stages of their internship and later their careers. Feedback differs from a formal evaluation, and it should occur many times over the length of a rotation. Feedback may be in verbal or written format. A person should not get to an evaluation process and hear concerns for the first time. Feedback by the preceptor allows the student or intern to focus on areas of need and improvement. The idea of providing feedback relates to all preceptors, whether you are someone that works with interns daily for several weeks or just a few hours a couple of days during the rotation. Each mentor has a unique skill set and perspective to give feedback. So what can we do better? Whether you are new to giving feedback or you are actively trying to build your skill set, you may find it helpful to create a set of guidelines or outline to assist in the feedback process. These are just a few of the important elements of good feedback. By identifying the components of feedback, we can again self-reflect on our own personal strengths and weaknesses related to this skill. These 8 elements will give you a good start in providing more effective feedback. Things to note. Good feedback occurs regularly, is prompt, facilitates the learning process, and is delivered in a calm, sensitive, and respectful manner. The feedback should include both positive and negative attributes, which we will further address in a minute. You'll want to make specific statements and support general statements with specific examples. Direct feedback towards behavior that the intern can control. Be direct, clear, and to the point. Person giving the feedback should own the statements and use I instead of you, and use descriptive rather than judgmental language. And lastly, you should express confidence in your intern. Are there any of these elements here that you may be able to strengthen when you're giving feedback? Now that we know some of the key factors in good feedback, let's take a look at some strategies for incorporating these factors. Taking each of these elements into consideration, we can make each feedback session more structured and smooth. Following this outline can help to prevent miscommunication. So what if no feedback is provided? If we don't give feedback, what is the learner gaining, or furthermore, assuming? A student or intern may think that their performance is meeting expectations and that there are no areas for improvement. Learners value feedback, especially when it is given by someone credible who they respect as a role model or for their knowledge, attitudes, and competence. Failing to give feedback sends a nonverbal communication in itself and can lead to mixed messages and false assessment by the learner of their own abilities, as well as a lack of trust in the preceptor. There are really 2 types of feedback. that which is positive and that which is negative or constructive. It is important to provide both to interns regularly. Positive feedback helps interns to identify parts of their performance that is well done, and negative feedback identifies areas of needed improvement. Positive feedback uses affirming comments about past behavior. These are actions or tasks that went well and identify skills or tasks that should be repeated in the future. Negative feedback are a collection of corrective comments about past behavior. These are things that did not go well. When delivering negative feedback, it is important to include actions that should not be repeated, but also what actions would improve performance in the future. Provide interns with a clear set of expectations for future actions related to said feedback. When reviewing the literature for providing feedback, you will find that there are a multitude of methodologies. I'm including a quick overview of 3 methods that have been used in the healthcare setting and with healthcare teaching. Although many principles have both strengths and weaknesses, these were chosen because they are quick, easy to use, and can be incorporated into teaching and mentoring immediately. The 3 methods that I will touch on today are the sandwich method, what, how, and what's referred to as SFED. The first method that we will address is the sandwich method, which is a widely known tool that is simple to use. It has 3 main components that we're going to address, including praise, coaching, and encouragement. You'll want to approach the situation carefully with forethought and planning. A good outline is a tool for success. Without planning, it is easy to get off track and you can lose control of the conversation. Knowing exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to say it helps. You'll want to identify the positive and give praise. Find something significant that the intern did. This needs to be related to the coaching that you're going to give and needs to be reasonably close in time. For example, if the intern prepared an educational handout well, you can start with addressing something on the handout. Then you'll go into the coaching. Present the facts. Now that you have their attention and they are in a receptive frame of mind, pause just a second to let that feeling solidify, then lead directly into the coaching. Avoid using the word but, as in but next time, since that can create a defensive atmosphere that you're trying to avoid. Be direct and firm, but never demeaning. Communication is a science, and if you want positive results, you have to be very scientific. For example, you could say something like, I'm going to work with you to better formulate your open-ended questions when educating patients. Then move into the encouragement. Give a bright outlook. When you gave the coaching, you inevitably caused some mental deflation in the person. Do not leave that in place. It is to be removed quickly but correctly. Project a positive outcome of future efforts. The natural conclusion is that there is a good base to start, the initial praise, and there is ways to improve that base, the coaching, and combining those will produce even better results. I can see that you are using patients' comments to formulate follow-up questions. Continue to do this. Then make sure that you follow up later. Don't wait until after the next issue arises to monitor the behavior change. Be helpfully inquisitive and continue promoting change. The objective is to anchor the positive nature of the change in the mind of the individual. If you just let things drop, your coaching might be forgotten. Without consistent reinforcement, a process called extinction sets in. The desired behavior change will not materialize. The next method is the what, how. This method is intern-driven, and it allows the intern to share their input first. It allows interns to identify both strengths and weaknesses of the task, and then it helps interns to identify suggestions for improvement. From here, preceptors can use the intern input to continue providing feedback on a specific task or skill. This method utilizes questioning to help the student learn and reflect, incorporating critical thinking. So next, let's look at a scenario. There are 3 main questions that provide the core of this technique. The first question is, what do you think went right? In this scenario, the intern can say, I felt very comfortable with the subject matter. I feel like I could answer all of the participants' questions during the class. The next question is, what areas do you think you could improve? Intern response could be, I think I'm talking very fast during the presentation. I finished about 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so I think I can slow things down. Final question, how do you think you can make those improvements? Intern response, before I teach that class again, I think that I will practice on my own to help with my timing. And finally, the preceptor can fill in the gaps with observations that were made. I agree with your observation that you could slow your speech down slightly. I do not think that you are too far off pace. Other thing that I would consider doing to make sure that you fill the entire class time is to engage the client more. It's a good idea to ask them open-ended questions and to get them talking, sharing, and or asking questions. You could ask what are some common beverages that their families consume that are different from the drinks mentioned as part of the lesson plan. And the final technique that we'll talk about today related to feedback is the SFED model. This model is preceptor-driven and consists of self-assessment, feedback, encouragement, and direction. In the self-assessment portion, you can ask your intern or student, what do you think went well? You allow the learner to reflect back onto the situation, and this is where then you give feedback. You input your ideas on where the intern can make improvements. You'll want to describe the specific areas of improvement. Then the preceptor will give encouragement. The preceptor can share their confidence in their abilities and show interns support for improving tasks. And then finally, the preceptor can provide direction. Here are some suggestions that you might try in the future related to the tasks that we are discussing today. The SFED model includes a self-reflection just as the last technique did, but is much more preceptor-driven than the what, how. And here is a scenario. An intern has completed a food service site review of a school kitchen. During the review, it was found that the kitchen manager is very diligent at keeping track of the amount of food prepared and served and documenting on the production record, but she has not been keeping consistent temperature logs for the milk cooler. The intern met with the preceptor at the end of the review to go over the items that were found and provided her with a report summarizing the review. The preceptor asks, what do you think went well, and allows the intern to reflect back on the situation. The intern responds, I think I looked through all of the kitchen records very thoroughly and was able to find things the manager was doing well and things that needed to be corrected. We developed a plan for her to keep track of the temperatures and a due date that will meet the deadline for when we have to have the site reviews done. At the end of the review, I gave her the report with information about what we had found and went over it with her. Preceptor states, this is where I think you could make improvement. Here is where the preceptor would provide the feedback and describe the specific areas of improvement. Preceptor states, I think you're right. You did take the time to look through all of the records and you were able to identify those issues. I think you did a good job in allowing the manager to give input on the method and time frame that will work well for her. One area I think you could have proven is the information provided in the summary report. In the summary for this review, it says temperature logs will be maintained and submitted to the main office. It's important to be very clear in the summary since it's the only written record of the review and what happened. In the event that someone had to look back on this to see what we need, the summary would also include which temperatures it's referring to, how they'll be recorded, and what the deadline is. The intern will respond, so it would be better if it said, milk cooler temperature logs will be maintained on the daily production record and submitted to the main office by March 31st, since that is what we decided will work for her. Here, the preceptor can show encouragement and show confidence and support. Yes, that would be a great revision. It's very clear and states exactly what will be happening and when it will be completed. You're doing really well with these reviews. I've seen a lot of improvement since your first site review 2 weeks ago. You're starting to see the big picture. Here the preceptor can give some suggestions that the intern could try and provide specifics. So on the review next week, you can include those suggestions in the summary form the manager will get. Today we've discussed a lot of different ways to provide feedback to students or interns. Occasionally, the feedback may be directly related to how to actually receive feedback. Feedback is not always received positively by learners, and fear of this can inhibit preceptors from giving regular face-to-face feedback. As we know, feedback is a regular part of the professional environment, and it is important that interns learn how to positively respond. A person's response to criticism, however constructively it is framed, can vary. Learners often discount their ability to take responsibility for their learning, and their responses may present in negative ways, including anger, denial, blaming, or rationalization. When giving feedback, it is helpful to maintain an empathetic yet consistent approach with a view to help the learner take responsibility for development and improvement. Although the focus of this module has been mainly about giving effective feedback to learners, it is also helpful to think in a structured way about how feedback might be received. You can help to prepare learners and yourself for receiving feedback by providing opportunities for them to practice the guidelines listed here. The aim of developing an open dialogue between the person giving feedback and the recipient is so that both parties are relaxed and able to focus on actively listening, engaging with the learning points and messages, and developing these into action points for future development. So here are some simple guidelines for receiving constructive feedback. Listen to it rather than prepare your response or defense. Ask for it to be repeated if you do not hear it clearly. Assume that it is constructive until proven otherwise, then consider and use those elements that are constructive. Pause and think before responding. Ask for clarification and examples if statements are unclear or unsupported. Accept it positively for consideration rather than dismissively for self-protection. Ask for suggestions of ways you might modify or change your behavior. Respect and thank the person giving feedback. Providing feedback is a skill that can improve with practice and experience. We hope that both preceptors and interns can view feedback as a positive thing. Thank you for watching.